So this isn't a political discussion that we're going to have here this morning. It's about how we can talk about our different views on any subject and try not to take sides or to be right. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Reverend Gail Dobert, and I welcome you to Unity of Bay City, to our wonderful podcast, Now What? Unity of Bay City is dedicated to all those who are seeking to discover their spiritual path and who strive every day to bring goodness and love into our beautiful world. How do we do that? We grow together as we discover and practice positive practical tools for our own personal and collective spiritual growth. No matter where you are on your life's journey, you are so very welcome here.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of the Now What podcast. My name is Scott Love, and I'll be your host on this fun and entertaining, insightful, and hopefully inspirational journey into the spiritual. I am joined today by Reverend Gail. How you doing today, Gail?
I'm well. Beautiful, beautiful fall day.
Oh, so good. So good. I drove in today, and I was like, wait a minute, what's the date? I guess yesterday was almost 80 degrees, and this is October.
Yeah, day before yesterday. Yesterday it got down, I think, to 60.
Right. I was wearing a jacket yesterday. It was the day before.
Yeah. The day before it was very hot, and then we had that beautiful thunderstorm, and that cleared it all up.
Beth and I went for a trip up north. We do that often, but it wasn't not that far north. We just went to Augray, and I caught a nice walleye. Cook at home. Ate it for dinner.
Nice.
Yeah. One of the benefits of living in Michigan.
Yes, one of the many.
Especially where we are. All right, well, what you got going for us today, Gail?
Well, I wanted to share a little poem, two poems that I found just to celebrate the life of Jane Goodall.
Oh, yeah.
She is such a fascinating woman, and I've read a bit of her biographies and, just about her. And she made her transition from this life to the next on October 1st. She was 91 years old. So I've got these two quotes of hers, of the many, many. But these really were pertinent to kind of what I was discussing Sunday. Change comes by listening and then starting a dialogue with the people who are doing something you don't believe is right. And the other one is, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. By Jane Goodall. Thank you, Jane, for all your work as it continues. So, yeah, the word of the day was appreciation on Sunday. Appreciation keeps me in a state of gratitude. And that is true, because when we appreciate something, we're grateful for it, right? So that's kind of how we started out this message of seed time and harvest. And I have three spiritual teachers, three of my metaphysical teachers that I never met in person. But I turned to these. They came up as I thought through this seed time and harvest. It's a pretty common metaphor, especially this time of year. And, moving through that, well, we have the seeds, we plant them, and then we have the harvest. But then we have the seeds again, because without the harvest, you don't get seeds to put in the next year. So I love that circle of life. From that, we're going to look at our inner and our outer world, being a spiritual being, having a human experience. And that's one of our kind of catchphrases that we use in metaphysics and unity, is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right.
And gosh, that messes with us, It's like we know there's something more. The two are never separated. But even though it sure feels that way sometimes, it's like, where's the spirit? Hello, why is this so hard? But we get to honor both. And we do that consciously. And we talk about consciousness a lot. And what does that even mean? Well, you can say, well, I'm conscious means I'm awake right now. I'm not sleeping. I'm not passed out or anything. But consciousness, to be conscious of our spiritual self, is beyond the thinking. That's when we can get quiet and we can find a vibrational level. And that's not a new concept, but it's one that we kind of skip over because consciousness brings us to a place where we can see beyond the physical. And that's why we call it meta. Meta means beyond. Meta means more.
And you think about being spiritual beings having a human experience. For a lot of people, it's the other way around. It's like the spirit is something that they experience once in a while. It brings it right back to our heads.
It does. And we stay there a lot because we're in a world of form and function. And so when we have, that's why nature is so important. That's why these awe and wonder that I talk about a lot is important, because that's when we have that gap between our thoughts. When something disturbs that, and that's not meant in a negative way, interrupts maybe is a better word. When you see something that just like, oh my gosh, like catching a walleye and having it for dinner, there's some awe and wonder in that exchange. That awe and wonder that gives us that gap, and we can just be for a moment. Even if we don't think, oh, I was just in the gap, we don't think about it. It just unfolds and happens and gives us that space we need. So one of the teachers that I turned to was Neville Goddard. He was known as Neville. I didn't even know his last name was Goddard until way later. But he was around from 1905 to 1972, a dynamic metaphysical speaker. And for about 30 years, he was very, very popular. The Fillmores, our co-founders, they were born, Myrtle was born in, before the Civil War, for goodness sakes, and Charles later than that. So they were, and their teachers really started this awareness, this shifting consciousness. And Neville was in there a little later than that, but still brought it forward in a really powerful way. He was born in Barbados, and they came to America when he was a small child. And he was described like this, and I love this: a man who stretched his wings in the winds of a nation that was open to religious innovation. And I'd never heard it described that way, religious innovation.
Yeah, that's very neat.
Because that's exactly what was happening in the world then. Well, it's been happening all along, but, because we're awake and aware now in a different way, there's more mainstream. You can talk about it now.
Right.
Because with the Fillmores, they happened to be in a place and in the U.S. that they didn't get persecuted. Because there's, Emma Curtis Hopkins, their teachers, and Ernest Holmes, and so many others that taught beyond the physical. So we had an awakening to a broader and deeper understanding of life that began thousands and thousands of years ago. Before Jesus, before Buddha, things were cooking already. As from just the dawning of time, and we don't know when that really was, but there's a lot of cool speculation, right? A nation open to religious innovation. And that means from curiosity. They were curious. There's got to be something more to this deal. I really don't think that there's this deity in the sky up there watching us and picking out you're bad, you're good, or smiting us, all those things. So they went beyond those superstitions, really. Neville said nothing is without significance, but not knowing the higher level of inner meaning, we look out upon a moving panorama of events and see no meaning to life. However, there is always a level of meaning, determining events and their essential relationship to our lives. We, as observers, had seen only what happened and how it happened, but we failed to see why it happened. Now, doesn't that just open your mind like crazy? It's like, why did it happen? Oh my gosh, that's a question I ask all the time. Why? And then I have to wait for some kind of answer to dawn on me. So we look at the surface of life's events and we don't go deeper into the why of whatever happened or is happening. But as we grow to understand that we're not trying to discern the outer why as a way to blame ourselves, why in a spiritual context is not a whodunit question. It's not, did you do that? Did I do that? It's not a whodunit. It's a search for the deeper meaning of life as a human being. We know there's more. It's about examining our own imagination, our thoughts and feelings about life, and then reimagining and recreating all along the way. And that's the kind of stuff that Neville taught a lot. Using your imagination to rewrite it, something that happened or something that you're trying to manifest, to rewrite it, to use your imagination for your good. He said, transformation is in principle always possible. The transformation lives in us, and it is only a question of becoming conscious of it. And that makes a lot of sense, really. You know, I mean, we can use our sense minds, our human thinking brain, go, okay, now how do I do that? Neville's statement of transformation always being possible brought me to another book. A new teacher of mine, Monica Guzman, and the title was what grabbed my attention as I transitioned into these why questions. And the title was, I Never Thought of It That Way, How to Have Fearlessly Curious Conversations in Dangerously Divided Times. I didn't realize when I added her book to my Kindle library several months ago that it was about how to talk about politics or most subjects, any subject, with people who do not agree with your views. Gasp, somebody not agreeing with me? Never. And how do we do that? Well, this gal, Monica, was an investigative journalist. And so she became very skilled at it. And we can be too. And I'll tell you a little bit more how she kind of arrived at that. So this isn't a political discussion that we're going to have here this morning. It's about how we can talk about our different views on any subject and try not to take sides or to be right. Guzman's book responds to a critical need in American society. Her emphasis is on curiosity and understanding rather than persuasion, which offers an alternative to the confrontational approaches when we're just looking to understand somebody. And we really, a lot of times, all we really need is somebody just to hear me, to understand what I'm saying, not always to agree with me. She advocates for a deeper examinations of one's own beliefs and those of others. This framework challenges conventional approaches to political or any dialogue that often prioritizes winning arguments over achieving understanding. Polarization threatens not just democratic institutions, but also the personal connections that form the fabric of American society. And that phrase from the Civil War just kept popping into my mind, brother against brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it was families that killed and disowned each other for these wars. And
That's kind of happening now.
Makes me shudder. That's why that kept coming up, and that's why I think this work is so important. It still takes a bit of maturity. It still takes somebody wanting to, and I told a little bit about my my late husband and our political views were different. I'm not political. I don't have that kind of thinking in me. I look everything from a spiritual dimension in as much as a human being, as much as I humanly let myself, right? So he would always try to convince me, and that just made me back off and get more stubborn and disagree. Mm-hmm. I realized that he was the kind of person who dug into details. He did research. He didn't just take what the news said. I mean, he was looking at different news sources that weren't, just on the news. He would read articles. He was a very kind and thorough person. And so I realized that about him when we were having some of these heated discussions. And one day I just said, tell me more. Now, where did you read that? And, how did you come to that conclusion? And when he told me, it didn't necessarily change my mind.
Right.
But I backed off. I understood how he came that way and why he was a very thorough, methodical person. Me, I'm not. I kind of skim over the top of certain things that I'm not interested in. Mm-hmm. And he would go deeper.
Right.
And so I respected that enough, and I could understand him, and I could listen without getting myself all hopped up.
That reminds me of Seek First to Understand Before You're Understood.
Yes.
By the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
If you take time to not necessarily, or not only necessarily listening to what they say, but also understand why they're saying that. What is the root of what they're saying?
Yep.
It really helps us to, well, first of all, what it does is it brings, if both people are doing it, it brings us both towards the middle.
Absolutely.
A lot less extreme.
It's like I agree to disagree kind of thing, I hear you, I respect you and understand where that came from, and this is my interpretation. And so as long as we can agree that we're both okay, right? Her book is not about relationships. It's about being curious. And she goes on to say here, I guarantee that when you are more and more genuinely curious, it will strengthen all the relationships that matter to you, whether they're with your relatives, your colleagues, your country, or yourself. So here's your mission, she says. Dear reader, if you choose to accept it, surprise yourself. Take one step closer to someone who disagrees with you, whether that means spending time with a friend or a relative you've been drifting apart from, reading an opinion from an earnest voice on the other side of your thought, or sparking a conversation you've been eager and hesitant to have. And I love these next few paragraphs. It really gave me pause. When you want to explore why they're wrong, explore what you're missing. That's what I did with my husband. I explored, what am I missing here? When you want to determine whose view wins, determine what makes each view understandable. When you want to discover why someone believes something that can confound you, discover how they came to believe that. When you want to know what their problem is, try to know what their concerns are. When you want to demand why they don't care about what you care about, learn what they care about more. When you want to trap them into saying what you want to hear, free them so that they can say what they honestly mean. And when you want to stop listening so you can react or respond or judge, which can happen often, mind that gap between what you know and what you most certainly don't, and ask one more curious question. I never thought of it that way. And she says that's what I call a signal. I never thought of it that way. It's one of those moments that you get like, oh, it's like an aha, isn't it? Oh, I never thought of it that way. The phrase describes something amazing. Catch yourself thinking it or saying it, and it's the clearest sign you get that new insight has spanned the distance between someone else's perspective and your own. I never thought of it that way moment starts to work on you instantly, leading to big swings in your take on things. Now, I'll interject here. This is excerpts from the book, but I have to say, leading you to take big swings on your take on things can be scary. It's like, that means I'm going to have to change my mind? Or, wait a minute, and then we kind of can shut down. We have to continue to breathe and stay open. She goes on to say, we say that new insights hit us, and that's exciting new knowledge, blows our minds, big or small. I never thought of it that way moment come when you collide with a new idea and the boom is big enough to notice. I never thought of that way moments can strike anywhere, in a conversation, while reading an article or book, even way after the first idea crashed into your brain. Now, some of your I never thought of it that way moments can challenge your ideas, bridging us to a perspective that we're not already leaning towards. Now, those are rarer, and they're surprising, and sometimes uncomfortable.
Sometimes we cling to ideas like they're life preservers. A lot of people emotionally actually feel like they're adrift and that there's nothing that's going to help them or save them. And all of a sudden there comes these entities, these ideas, these organizations, these philosophical or even spiritual belief systems while they may not agree wholeheartedly, it gives them some type of relief or some type of recognition in it. So they cling to it so hard and they won't let it go. It's like trying to get somebody to let go of their life preserver because you're offering them a pole to pull them up, and they're like, this preserver is doing just fine. I'm not drowning. And if I let go of this preserver and grab that pole, then there's no guarantee, So no, I'm just going to stay right here. And now that is just a parallel of a lot of the thinking that's going on in the world right now. It's like they don't want to think of it any other way other than, because if they're wrong about that, then maybe they're wrong about a whole bunch of other stuff, and then they have to completely disconnect from this whole egoic idea of themselves that, they have to be like, oh, wow, maybe I am that.
Yeah, yikes, I don't like that.
Right.
That means I have to change my mind.
Right.
Scary stuff.
It's so much easier just hanging out with these weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it doesn't feel right at some level. It doesn't feel right at some level. And so we get to hopefully loosen our grip on some of those things that we feel that are safe. And I do say that, you don't want to, sometimes these conversations just happen in our head, and we can think about what another person has said and then maybe investigate it on our own or just sit with it and not really have that conversation with them, because sometimes it may be too scary. And sometimes if it's something that of an antagonistic relationship anyway, you might not want to go there. Like I said, she's a trained journalist and knows kind of the boundaries and set the stage. But if it's been a heated thing between you and someone else, and you read this or you're hearing this and go, yeah, maybe I could try that. Just really sit with it and see, can you?
Right.
Like I could do that with my husband because I knew him for 44 years. But sometimes it might not be a safe conversation to have. So just use your intuition, and you can do a lot of it in your own mind.
Right.
You can do a lot of it that way.
A good action step for me, at least internally, is if I see somebody that is saying or doing something that I'm completely, and it brings that up, that feeling, sometimes I really just have to stop and be like, okay, this is another human being. They have emotions, they have thoughts, and there probably is a reason they're thinking or feeling that way. So just saying those words kind of humanizes them, and it makes them feel less like an enemy or something that needs to be shunned or
changed. We want to change their mind.
Right. See them as a human being, but it doesn't mean you have to agree with them still. It just means, don't demonize them. Don't make them, because you can't negotiate with somebody that you think is ultimately evil.
True. And that's where it comes back to where she says it's not about changing somebody's mind. It's not about persuasion.
Right.
It's about letting your heart have some space and your head have some space, and know that you're fine in what you may learn something from them,
right,
but that doesn't mean you're not going to necessarily agree or change what you're doing. It may change them because they go, oh, I see where you're coming from. I understand now. And that's really what we want, just to understand. Just to understand. You don't have to change your vote. So combine this way of learning as a spiritual practice, because that's at the core of what it is. And this is not in the book. This is in my book. And we can begin to see that peace within ourselves and in the world around us when we can be spiritually and really psychologically mature enough to say, okay, everybody has different ways of thinking of things, and I don't have to make them think the way I do. And they're not new ideas. Long before, and certainly including Jesus and the Buddha and humankind, was slowly waking up to our similarities and our differences. We still have the urge to be right, or still wanting to be heard, maybe even understood, not always agreeing. Our human egos just want to lead the way. And the ego can protect us too. If we just allow it and hear it from ourselves, we hear our own self, we can go, okay, is that really how I feel? Is that the truth of me, of the situation? And give it a minute. That's a spiritual practice right there. Spiritual practices are not all about sitting in a lotus position, meditating and, chanting. It can be if you like that. It's a wonderful thing. But it's also simply breathing and just allowing yourself a little gap, a little space to think about things a little differently. With honesty, with curiosity, and with respect. This world will change so quickly if we can love our neighbors as ourselves. Those old sayings that we've been around forever, that have been abused and misunderstood, are quite simple, really, if we allow them to be. So we can try new ways to listen, to ask why, and begin with the radical idea that no one is beyond understanding, and see what it reveals within you. And again, understanding doesn't mean agreeing with, but just simply taking a moment to be curious, to understand. And even when we disagree, we can affirm then that nothing and no one is against me. Life is for me. Life is for you. Allow only love to prevail. We don't need to stand and defend. We open our hearts to understand and then follow the way of our heart. And ask, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? And then the third teacher that entered into this, that I used in meditation, is from Marianne Williamson. She has written many books on spirituality, and this one has the same political type of message that Guzman did in her book, but with that deeply spiritual bend to it. So I'm just going to share here at the end of this broadcast some of the words from this that you can take into meditation if you'd like to. Just take a breath. Where there is love, possibilities are endless, but they do not emerge from the world as we know it. They emerge from a place that lies beyond our normal waking consciousness. With the knowing that we are all connected by God, and yet we are individualized expressions of God, we can begin to let go of always being right and allow some space to discern within as we decide what is right or wrong for you. When I never thought of it that way moment, ponder it. Open your heart space and breathe. Open your heart space and breathe. Where there is love, possibilities are endless. And so it is.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Gail.
My pleasure. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed that episode, or if you enjoy any of our episodes, please take a second to like and subscribe to this podcast. It's a very small step, and it really does a lot to help us out. And be on the lookout for special events and activities that are happening at the Unity of Bay City. You can check out unityofbaycity.com, or you can check out Unity of Bay City on Facebook. And once again, my name is Scott, and this is Gail, and you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye.